Good morning, and thank you for being here this morning. I'm Sarah Watson, and I'm the Executive Director of Looking for Lincoln and the Abraham Lincoln National Heritage Area, and we're so honored that you chose to come and share this unveiling with us. This exhibit is something that we've been working on a year and a half, and we are just thrilled to be unveiling it today. And we're also thrilled, Gwen Montgomery, with having it here at the Springfield Public Library. This is just the perfect place to share a message like this. The exhibit tells the story of freedom seekers, conductors, and communities in Illinois that were part of the journey to freedom on the Underground Railroad. We believe this is the first of its kind. We don't know of any other exhibit about the Underground Railroad in Illinois. We wouldn't be here today without the hard work and dedication of our Looking for Lincoln, but especially Heather Feaser. Heather, where are you? Hiding. Heather has given the last year and a half of her life to this exhibit, and maybe a little blood, some sweat.
Possibly.
And maybe a little love.
Lots of love. Lots of love.
So thank you. Thank you. Again, thank you to Lincoln Public Library. Many leaders and elected officials from our community have come today, and we say thank you very much for coming. Thank you, thank you. And we have one Looking for Lincoln board member, Catherine Harris. Yay! Yay! Now, we're keeping this brief as possible, so that's all I'm going to say for now, except that I'm honored to have Senator Doris Turner here to speak with us.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am very...
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator.
I'm really excited to be here. This is a phenomenal exhibit. It's a phenomenal opportunity for our community. We talk about Abraham Lincoln in Springfield a lot, but I don't think that everybody understands the connection that he and Springfield have with all of these things that are running through our community. If you take an opportunity to look through the exhibit, you will see that Abraham Lincoln and his community, his neighbors, played a major role in the Underground Railroad. And this is a perfect time. You know, we are working from the state level with the Underground Railroad Commission, and so having this exhibit here is just really, really great. I do want to also take a few minutes to thank Gwen Harrison for what you have brought to the library. I mean, your energy, your wanting to do something more and opening this up, and just this exhibit being here is a testament to how you are re-energizing what we do here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And so now, you know, this is kind of the time of the woman in our history. So take a look at the exhibit and you will see some phenomenal women that played a major role in what was happening. The other thing that I want to bring to your attention, and then I am going to sit down, oftentimes when the story of the Underground Railroad has been told, it's been told from the vantage point and the vision of the conductors. But this is an opportunity for us to see the Underground Railroad and those travelers along that railroad from the vantage point and the history and voices of the freedom seekers, which makes that story even more compelling. So please, when you're going through the exhibit, think about it in terms of those individuals that were traveling that railroad through our communities and why they were traveling, the load that they were carrying along that journey, but also what happened at the end of their journey. So thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for bringing the exhibit. And when you leave, go tell 10 other people to come and see it.
Thank you. Now, Senator Turner, I'm having trouble with names today. I'm so sorry. Didn't explicitly mention this, but you are on the Illinois Underground Railroad Task Force. So we've got good work going at the state level. Our team also worked with a very talented group of advisors to gather Illinois stories.
My name is Eliza Little. I was born in Petersburg, Virginia, but when I was young, my master took me to Tennessee. I was beaten by my master's wife. I remember she threw a china plate at my head and it left scars. One day she threw tongs at my head and I just went unconscious. John Little is my husband. He's my protector. I was moved to another master in Tennessee, and I convinced him to also purchase my husband. But when I moved there, things got even worse. With my new master, I was made to work all day in the sun, picking cotton. I grew weak. I was sick. One day, I overheard the master saying that he was going to give John 300 lashes, and I knew he needed to leave that night. He escaped in the night, and he told me that he would be back for me 2 weeks later. Another slave learned that I was planning to escape, however, and told my master I was to be put in irons. But they didn't have any that fit me at the time. So while they were waiting for the blacksmith to make new ones, I had someone by me at all times to make sure I didn't get away. But I told him I was going to the stream to get water, and I took my pail and ran. Only my husband found me, and we started our escape. My husband and I walked on foot from Tennessee. Neither of us had shoes. We were sleeping outside during the day and walking at night. We saw animals. We saw a wolf, which was terrifying. And we ate what we could. We got what we could from the forest. And my husband and I both took things from people's windowsills, pies, cakes. By far, the scariest part of our journey was crossing the Ohio River. I couldn't swim. We didn't have a raft. So my husband put me on a log with all of our belongings on my back, and that's how we crossed. I sitting on the log and he right next to me, and we both knew that if the log tipped left or right, I would go into the river and I wouldn't come back out because of the weight of all of our belongings on my back. I was lucky enough to experience the Underground Railroad when I and my husband John made it to Chicago and were able to be helped by people on the Underground Railroad get to Detroit, then found another group of people who helped us get to Canada, where we would be free for the rest of our lives. When John and I got to Canada, we started a farm, and the farm was prosperous.
Dr. Brian Mitchell was one of those advisors. He has 2 master's degrees and a doctorate from the University of Illinois, New Orleans. How's that?
I've never been there.
Me neither, but it must bleed orange and blue.
That spot.
Okay, we'll just let it be University of New Orleans. And serves as Director of Research and Interpretation at the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum. So Brian, if you would, come up and give us a few remarks.
Everybody loves the finished product, right? You come out, you see an exhibit, and you don't realize the work that goes behind it. The people that have to scour through secondary sources, primary sources, to come up with the stories that make up these exhibits. I'd like to take a minute or two to thank the project advisors and to acknowledge them. And I'll ask if I call you name, if you could stand up for just a moment so people will know who you are. Reggie Guyton. Charlotte Johnson. Barry Jurgensen. Owen Mulder. Barbara Oshinger Garvey, Nancy Saul, Pam Smith, Ann Walker, and last but not least, Sam Wheeler. For years, I taught in the classroom, and students their biggest complaint would be, up into your class, I never saw African Americans in history. Up until this class, I never saw a presence, and we think of things antagonistically, blacks against whites. However, history doesn't work that way. In every story that I laid out, in every lecture that I gave, and no matter how fraught the situation, they were allies. They were people who were willing to risk everything, not just the freedom seekers, but whites who believed in the cause and were willing to risk their lives and their freedom and their livelihoods to assist because they knew what was morally right. Not necessarily legal, but morally right. And they did just that. I'm glad that this exhibit acknowledges that presence also. I'm glad that it tells the story from the perspective of the freedom seeker, those people who are risking everything to run away from plantations and to find themselves and to find equality. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brian. We are grateful to Lincoln Library. I think I put it in here 3 times just so that we would make sure to acknowledge that the public library is the perfect place for an exhibit like this. And with everything going on in our lives, with the new monument, 1908 race riots, with things that are going on, I hope we can see the relevance today in the story that we're telling here.
My name is William Donegan, born in Freeman, Kentucky. Moved to Springfield, Illinois, where I'm currently a shoemaker. I will help African Americans who come to Springfield to live find jobs within their community. Underground railroads, where we take runaway slaves and provided them transportation to the northern region for freedom. One early morning in summer or spring, I believe it was, George Burroughs came to my shoe shop, very excited. As he was going to my house, he explained to me that he dropped a young lady off from Jacksonville. She was a teenager. Her masters were en route looking for her. I told her to go in the back. Stay in the back, do not leave until I tell you to come out. They came into my house looking for her. To their dissatisfaction, they walked in the house, went to the kitchen, unable to find her, and left disappointed. With everyone looking for this young lady, I knew it would be a hard task to get her out of the area without being caught and her being killed as well as myself. So devised a plan knowing that there was a young lady of a fair complexion further down the road. I put white gloves on her and got a white mask to put on her. Explained to her, when we leave, you have to change your voice. You have to change your posture. You have to change how you walk. So if they did see us or approach us, they will think in the darkness you were a white lady. Fortunately, that worked. When her master approached and heard her say something, he said it was my slave. Someone said, no, it's a white lady. I got her to my brother's house. He informed me that another gentleman, another conductor will be going up north. They were taking young boys to go plow. So we dressed her down in some clothes, dressed her down to look like a boy. Unfortunately, they had to stay there for a while due to the fact that they were still looking for her. I was given $700 in gold and silver by the owner of a slave as a bribe for my assistance in the recapturing. We looked, unable to find the fellow, and had to return the money. The funny thing about it was, the person was lying under a pile of leather in my shop.
And now I would like to introduce Mayor Misty Buscher.
Thank you, Sarah. I won't ask for a good morning back because we did that with the great senator, but good morning, everyone. I want to thank you all for being here, and I also want to give a special shout out to some special people. Gwen Harrison, you are just an amazing library director. Thank you for doing what you do. Gwen, I don't know if any of you knew this. I know I saw Miss Catherine there, and I'm not sure who else was there. I think Ken Page was there, but Gwen hosted an event on the anniversary of the 1908 race riots here at the library to commemorate what happened and educate and talk about it, and had a display. And Gwen is partnering with Sarah's wonderful group, Looking for Lincoln, to bring this display here as well. And those are the things that our community needs to remember is our history. If we do not talk about our history and remember our history, it might repeat itself, and we do not want that to happen. When you go through this display, please read about the stories of the lives of the people that the display talks about. These are history makers that you are learning about when you read about them. Brave men and women that just wanted freedom, something we take for granted so very often. My favorite part of the exhibit is the stories you're going to see. These are people that have been long passed on, but their lives are forever embedded in our memories now, reading about them and learning about them. Freedom seekers. It's very, very important. I had the honor of explaining this display and what it was about. We have a group of junior high students from Ashikaga, Japan, visiting our great city. They're here today. And I had the honor of explaining to them what this display meant for the community. So I encourage all the community members to come out. It's free to come into the library and see this. You're not paying to come see the display, and read about it and bring your students and let them learn about it too. Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much for Looking for Lincoln.
Well, thank you.
My name is Susan Van Allen Richardson. I was born into slavery in the state of Georgia. When I was 5 years old, I was moved to Illinois near the Sparta area under indentured servitude, but might as well have been slavery by another name. Andrew and Martha Borders was my owners. They were prominent, known landowners and were well known for their harsh treatment of their indentured servants. I brought 3 children into this world. So one day, I was doing my daily chores and I heard an altercation with the Border children and my own. Mrs. Borders gets very, very upset and told Mr. Borders that she wants me and my children beaten. He refused and instead offered her to do the beating and threatened to sell my children back down south. We were then locked in the barn. From that moment, I knew it was time for me to go. So the first part of our journey was by foot. We followed the creek behind Mr. Borders' property. From there, Mr. Hayes helped us get on a steamboat up the Illinois River until we disembarked in Farmington. From there, we took a wagon until we reached the border north of Knox County to Reverend John Crux. We were there for a few days until the sheriff got word that we were staying at the Reverend's property. So the children and myself were then taken to the Knoxville County Jail. Word got back to Mr. Borders. He then traveled to the Knoxville County Jail, and to our relief, he did not provide proof of indentured servitude for us to travel back home with him, so he left empty-handed. The children and I were then released, but not free. In Knoxville, I found work as a laundress for many of the local families. Jarrett, my oldest, found work in the fields, and occasionally I would leave the 2 youngest at the local hotel. Mr. Borders indeed returned with the proper documentation of indentured servitude. He then kidnapped my kids, and they were once again locked up in the county jail in hopes that I would return to get them. I was then advised by local abolitionists that I shouldn't go, because then I will lose my chance of freedom. So instead, they disguised me and sent me away to Galesburg to fight for freedom there. The abolitionists did try to free my children, but they failed. Since I arrived in Galesburg, I actually helped found the very first Black church in Galesburg. I also myself became an abolitionist and helped other slaves get to freedom, and I remained there then on after.
My name's John Hossick. I'm from Scotland. We moved first to Quebec, then I migrated down to Illinois to work on the Illinois-Michigan Canal. Ended up living in Gooding Grove and then eventually settled in Ottawa. The Illinois-Michigan Canal is the connection point that allows for an inland waterway to be completed so that you can go from Lake Michigan on through to the Illinois River and then down to the Mississippi River. For our purposes, it became a convenient path to transport runaway slaves to Lake Michigan and then eventually get them up into Canada. I have a business shipping grain out of Chicago, and I also have a lumber distribution business. I think it's reasonable to say that we're considered prominent citizens of Ottawa. The Fugitive Slave Act is just an abomination of legal tomfoolery. It states that no matter where a slave is found, a runaway slave, even if they're found in a free state, they have to be returned to their rightful owner. If the runaway slave is found, not just a runaway slave, any Negro, any black man is found in a free state, and he's taken before the magistrate and the commissioner. If the commissioner finds him guilty, the commissioner is paid $10, and he's returned to somebody in the South. If the commissioner finds that he's not guilty, the commissioner's paid $5. How many of these men do you think are found not guilty? So when Jim Gray came to southern Illinois, he was being pursued by slave catchers. They eventually put him into a jail in one of the southern Illinois counties, and eventually the U.S. Marshals transported him from there up to the northern part of Illinois, and the trial was actually held in Ottawa. At the end of the trial of Jim Gray, the judge said he had to be returned, and so as they were leading him out of the cart, myself and several other abolitionists, we physically stood up and blocked the U.S. Marshals and prevented him from escorting Jim Gray out of the cart house. I told Jim Gray, if you want your freedom, man, run. And he went busting out of the front door of the courthouse, ran across the yard, jumped over the fence, head first into the carriage that was waiting for him, and then they got him out of Ottawa as fast as they could. We were put on trial for separating this runaway slave from the U.S. Marshals. Eventually I was found guilty, although don't really think I'm guilty of anything. I was fined $100 and sentenced to 10 days in jail. As part of my speech that I made in court, I said, you know, mercy's only for the guilty. And I'm not guilty of anything, so I don't need any mercy from a judge, because I've done what's right in the sight of God. And I've done what's right according to the laws of the Constitution and according to the Declaration of Independence.
My name is George Burroughs. I'm from Canada. Married to Marianne Waters, and we have 4 children. I work as a porter on the Illinois Central Railroad. As a porter, I will sometimes smuggle fugitives or runaway slaves from Cairo to Chicago. I would try to convince slaves to leave with me, but they was afraid to leave their families. They were afraid of what their masters told them about the North. Most people didn't come. One freedom seeker that stands out to me is the little girl. She was between 7 and 8 years old, light-skinned, very pretty. She wasn't well dressed, so I didn't know how I would get her to the depot. But I hid her in a box in the porter's room. I covered it with quilts, and we carried her from St. Louis Junction to Chicago. I didn't know how I was going to get her to the porter's room because it was 2 officers outside. I told her that they were her enemies, and we started to go past the officers. One of the officers placed his hand on the girl. I turned around and I threw his hands off the girl. I asked him what he meant by insulting the girl. And I told the officer that she was my cousin and she was working for some people and they didn't treat her right. So I had to go and get her and bring her home. We went to town and these 2 men followed. We went up a back alley and we lost the man. I carried her to the office and I left her with friends. And that was my first time working for the Underground Railroad.
Now we have one more very special thing to do. Lieutenant Governor Stratton wanted to be with us today. She feels very passionate about the Underground Railroad in Illinois. However, she had another commitment, so she has sent a video for us to watch. And I'm not sure, can you guys see the TV screen from where you are? Particularly if I step out of the way.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, and I am so excited to celebrate the brand new Journey to Freedom Illinois Underground Traveling exhibit. This display highlights the heroic efforts of those who fought against injustice with grit and perseverance. And of course, there is no better place to unveil the exhibit than in President Lincoln's hometown of Springfield. Visitors will hear diverse stories about freedom seekers, conductors, and the many community members across our state who use their power to build a more just future for all. It is vital that we preserve and protect those memories. In passing down their words and experiences, we honor the history that shaped the Illinois we share today. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Looking for Lincoln Heritage Coalition and all of the volunteer advisors who helped put this together. Because of your work and the devoted research of Larry McClellan and all of those who have spent their careers studying their consequential time in our history, we are able to share a fuller picture of what the Underground Railroad looked like in Illinois. Thank you for this gift to our communities.
We're very honored that she did a video for this opening. Before we go to any on-topic questions, I just want to mention that we did a spectacular video as part of this project, and that will be running after we finish this part of the event. And there are cookies over on that table. So most importantly, be sure that you get a cookie. Yeah, from Incredibly Delicious. Yes, yes. So those of you from Springfield know that Incredibly Delicious is incredible. There you go. So any questions, on-topic questions?
What are people going to see, in your words, what will people see when they come in and view the exhibit?
I hope that they will see the untold or not very well told story of what it was like to try and escape slavery through the state of Illinois. I am not a historian, so I'm going to say this in one sentence, and then you'll have to find a historian to really explain it. But we were not truly a free state. We had black codes. We had a lot of things that kept people from truly being free. And so going through Illinois to escape slavery was not a simple thing. It was a very, very difficult thing. So what I hope is, what we're really trying to do is tell that Illinois story of what the freedom seekers, the conductors, those that helped did. And by the way, I will also say research on this is very difficult because the Underground Railroad was a very secret, very quiet thing. Illegal, yes, it was illegal. And in fact, we've got the story of a person who, a white man who actually got into a lot of trouble. He got caught.
There's multiple panels, and there's 3 different types. There's people panels, and we look at the stories of individual people, both freedom seekers and conductors on the Underground Railroad. We have questions, so what was the Underground Railroad? And we have a series of question panels. And then on the back side of this is probably my favorite part of the exhibit, and it shows some of the many different people who were involved in the Underground Railroad. And since we can't tell all their stories in our exhibit, there's a QR code on there, and it takes you to a website where you can learn more about individuals who were actually involved in the Underground Railroad.
The exhibit will be here through the end of November. We actually have 2. We had a second exhibit created so that we could be traveling in 2 places at once. So next week it's going to open in Macomb, and we'll be there through the end of the year. And then we're working on the schedule for next year as it travels from community to community.
And the schedule's on the website, illinoisUGRR.org. And they have an email address that they can email for more information about the exhibit and hosting it.
The exhibit will be here through the end of November.
Any other questions?
All right.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much.
together these stands, and then we slip these things. Well, my name is Gwen Harrison. I'm the director at Lincoln Library, and I am so excited to have this exhibit at this public institution. When I was first asked whether or not we wanted to participate, it was a no-brainer. I said yes. We want to be a part of telling this story. There are a lot of things that are demonstrated in this exhibit. There are stories about unknown folks that helped out with the Underground Railroad. There are stories about people that were seeking freedom. There are stories about the conductors. There are stories concerning the reason why both sides participated in these efforts. So come to Lincoln Library, enjoy the exhibit, take time to learn, bring your families, and learn an important part about the history in Illinois concerning the Underground Railroad.